number 2. Question number 2, once I have my ranking, is saying, well, what could I take one of those numbers times 20 and get something else? Did anyone come up with one of our numbers that possibly would have worked from that very first column? Anyone have any of them? Like 300? If I have 300, 300 times 20 gives us how much? Gives us 6,000. Was that one of your numbers in your column, was 6,000? Yeah. So 300 meters, looking at this one, right? 300 meters to give us the 6,000 meters. That would be one. Anyone saw any other ones? So 6,000 meters, I agree. 6,000 meters times 20 gave us how much? 120. That one would have worked. Okay. If I'm looking at times 500, now this time I wanted you to pick numbers and write them in scientific notation for 2B. So there's at least 2 possibilities. Anyone have one of them? So you should have had, we have all these written in scientific notation. Okay. If I take 6.1, or 6, times 10 to the negative 1, so 6 times 5 gives us how much? Just 6 times 5 is 30. So if I have 6, and this is really, if we were looking at that, right, 0.6 times 500, I should come up with 3 times 10 to the second. Is that going to be 300? Okay, that's one of them. Anyone have another one? I wouldn't be worried about marking these panoramic lines. You got the first part done that we checked. 1.2 times 10 to the negative 3 was another one that if I take times 500 should give me 6 times 10 to the negative 1. So those would be 2 other possibilities that I was looking at. Okay. Today, the other part that I was talking about is that you needed to have 5 questions done from where you're asked to write it in scientific notation, and then 5 where you are asked to write as we are looking, so going from scientific to standard form, and then picking 5 from here and writing them in scientific notation. So if you didn't do those, you should have those someplace so that I can see them. If you didn't do them last night, make sure you get them done tonight, okay? So that if I take a look at those. In your workbook, right behind this page, if you turn it to the back, you see 9B. 9B, before we take your test, you need to do 9B. Our test is probably looking like Friday of next week. So I don't care when you do 9B, but at some point you want to do section 9B. I need that for the test. I'm going to be checking it. If you get it done tonight, you do it next week, Wednesday, Thursday, you need to have this done. And what it's asking you to do is it says these are the students' answers. You're the teacher. Indicate below whether they get the answer correct or incorrect. For each incorrect answer, indicate where they made their errors. Okay? Those of you that are retaking that quiz that have actually come in and done your work, if you want to try looking at this, this would probably be really helpful also to retake that quiz. This would probably help you figuring out maybe where some of those mistakes are. Okay? I want you right now to turn in your notes to C10 notes. Oh, November. So the first is Tuesday. All right, so let's look up here. I'm going to be passing back your quizzes also. Operations. So we are now, the reason that we did scientific notation is that we are now going to be looking at our operations in scientific notation, which is when we add, subtract, multiply, and divide using scientific notation. We are not going to do the addition part first. We are going to start today with the multiplication and division. Tomorrow in class, we will have a worksheet that you'll be getting. And when we do that worksheet in class, you will be having that option to take the quiz, some of you that are doing the retake, or work on the worksheet. So the reason we did all those exponent rules before is because now we are going to have some problems that look like this. So these are the addition, subtraction problems in your notes. I would like you to go to the top of that next page of your notes that looks like this. It says problem 3 on the top. We're going to come back, and on Monday of next week is when we're going to do the addition, subtraction, okay? Today we are just starting totally with the multiplication and division. So when I take a look, it says to multiply numbers in scientific notation at the very top. Some of you are focused, some of you are not. To multiply these numbers in scientific notation. First, multiply the coefficients. And some of you are going, I don't get it. What's the coefficient? In scientific notation, these are my coefficients. Okay? So if you don't have a calculator, you definitely need a calculator for this lesson. Take out your calculator. If not, check with your shoulder partner and help each other out. When you come into class from now on, sorry about that. You want to make sure if you don't have a calculator, and then those of you that borrow one of my calculators, I don't know if you realize it, but when you came into class there, all the calculators were up here. That doesn't mean I want you to leave it at your desk, okay? So when you're done using my calculators that you're bringing in, return them right back up here. Don't keep them at your desk. I don't want to have to go around the room and pick up from you, okay? So as we look at this one, please on your calculator, take 5.6 times 7.102. Turn to the front. So that means you're writing this down, okay? 5.6 times 7.102. When you did that, what'd you get, Connor? 39.77. Everyone agree? Okay. The next thing it says, so the first step, multiply the coefficients. The next one, when we multiply our powers of 10, we are adding their exponents. So please write back here, 12 plus 4. This is where some of you on the quiz got confused on that exponent quiz, doing some of these. So we should have 10 to the 16th power. So right at this point, we are looking at multiplying, and we'd say that our answer is 39.77 times 10 to the 16th. But if I leave my answer in this form, that is not scientific notation. So this is what I need you to be thinking. Oh, at this point, this decimal is supposed to be moved over 16 places. Some of you were very confused yesterday, and you still thought I wanted you to do 16 zeros. It's not 16 zeros, it's 16 places that we are moving our decimal point. So when I look at this, if I now write this number as 3.977, how many places would I have to move the decimal point? Would I move it 17 places or 15 places? I should be moving it, what do you think, Wyatt? 17. So it was 16 when it was right here, right? But I'm now placing it between the 3 and 9, which means this is to the 17th power for my answer. Let's do a division one on the next part down in your notes, and then we're going to do a couple practice ones. So again, when we do division, when you're doing division, one of the things we want to look at is we're going to divide, it says, the coefficients. I want you to write this problem right behind here as 3.04 times 10 to the 5th, all divided by 9.89 times 10 to the 2nd. Because on the worksheet that we do, this is how yours is going to look. So I start off, and the first step it says is divide the coefficients. So on your calculator, this line, remember, means division. You're going to put in 3.04 divided by 9.89. Do that on your calculator right now. As you do that, what'd you get, Layla?
I got 0.307.
0.307. Okay? So, key thing is, we're dividing our coefficients. Dividing the coefficients. That's our step 1. Step 2 says then we look at our exponent rules. Since we're dividing, we are going to subtract our exponent rules. Okay? So we subtract our exponents, which means we're going to put 5 minus 2, which is going to give us 10 to the third. So we are looking at the problem, and we have 0.307 times 10 to the third. This is not in scientific notation, but just to be clear, this means times 10 to the third that I would have moved my decimal point over 3 places. If I write it in scientific notation, it is going to be 3.07. Should I have to move it 4 places or 2 places if I put it over here now to get the same? Should be, what do you guys think, 2 or 3? Should be 2. And someone said, well, how do I know if I did that right, if they're looking the same? Remember, this number, I want you to write this right now in standard form. Write it in standard. In standard form, this would have been 307, right? Please put this in your notes, back on that page before you turn. In standard form, this would be 307. Is this 307 also in standard form? So since they both are the same, these two things are equivalent. But this is written in scientific notation. Yesterday on the quiz, some of you left it as either a decimal or you left the number out in front as too large of a number. So make sure this first number must be between 1 and 10. All right, top of the next page, we're going to do some practice. Yes? Because scientific notation, the definition of it says the first number must be between 1 and 10. Because or else people could put really huge numbers or really small numbers. So we always want that first number to be between 1 and 10. They're going to be equivalent. And same with back here. These two things are both going to get that same answer. It's going to have, like behind this, there's going to be 14 zeros. Behind this one, there'd be 14 zeros. But if I can write it different ways, then someone else could say, oh, couldn't I put 0.003977 times 10? And that would work. And we don't want to have a lot of different ways of writing it, right? So we want one standard way, so their definition of scientific notation that we always use, first number is between 1 and 10, okay? So, when we are looking at these problems, as we do the practice, I want you to rewrite yours this way, so when you do your homework tonight, you do it in the same way. I want to see 4.8 times 1.2. You're going to get that answer on your calculator. Then we're going to put times. I'm okay if when you do the 10 to the powers, you do either 10 to the 6 times that, or if you would please show me this addition. So on your calculator, do the multiplication. 4.8 times 1.2. Courtney, what'd you get? 5.76 times. Fiona, when I multiply the 10 to the 6th and 10 to the 3rd, I end up with 10 to what power? By adding those. 10 to the 9. Is this in scientific notation? First numbers between 1 and 10 times 10 to a power. This is our answer. We are done. So when you're writing that next one, I want you to kind of write it in the same way. When you do your homework tonight, I want to see this, that you're doing 8.18 times 1.15 times 10. Peter, what power should I put to the 10? What do I have to do with my exponents? Okay. What am I doing with the negative 6 and negative 5? Adding them. So let's put negative 6 plus negative 5, because you made a little fatal error there. So on your calculator, you've just multiplied. Bo, you have a calculator? All right, Sage, what'd you get?
Haven't got anything yet.
Okay. 8.18 times 1.15.
9.407.
9.407 times. Peter had said he thought this was going to be negative 1, right? It's not negative 1. What are we doing when you add negative 5 and negative 6? What should I be getting is that?
Negative 11.
Negative 11. Is this written in scientific notation? First number between 1 and 10, times 10 to a power. We are done. We can have negative exponents in scientific notation. We can't when we are just looking at single numbers, right? So as we do the division problems, please write it first as 5.3 times 10 to the third, and please put that all over 7.65 times 10 to the fifth. Those of you that write your 10 to the fifth so that it looks like 105, figure out what you need to do to make that 10 so much bigger so that I can see that it is not 105, but 10 to the fifth. Okay? First step is to divide these two numbers. So we are taking on your calculator, we are taking 5.3 divided by 7.65. Grace, what did you end up with?
0.69.
0.69 times 10. Daniel, what am I doing with my exponents when I divide?
You're subtracting this.
Subtracting. So I'm going to put 3 minus 5. 3 was in my numerator, minus 5. So this is telling us at this point we have 0.69 times 10 to the negative 2. Everyone agree? Okay. This isn't in scientific notation. This is telling us to move our decimal point 2 places this way. That's what that means when we see this negative 2 up here. It means 2 places to the left. So my final answer that I'm looking at should be 6.9 times 10. That's okay, it's me. All kinds of people call in at this point. You know, they want to figure out how we're going to vote to come up, right? All those elections. So my call was from Bismarck. So it's either for elections or it's can you come and donate blood from the American Red Cross and I donate blood. So if we're looking at this, this was 2 places. If I now place it here, what am I looking at? Negative, do I have to move it 3 places, not 1 place, right? So this is going to be a negative 3. This part gets a little harder when you have to do the rewrite. If you get to this point and you kind of struggle with this last part, I get that. This is hard to sometimes figure out. But I think it helps if you say, oh, this means to move it 2 places, so now when I put it here to get the same answer, I have to move it 3, so negative 3. Please put this one in your calculator, or write it this way. 4.6 times 10 to the second divided by 5.01 times 10 to the negative 3. And those of you, if you don't have your calculator, I am okay that you actually grab use your device and use a calculator on there also, because you can use that calculator. So, first thing we're going to do is we are dividing these 2 numbers. When we divide those, Ellie, did you get an answer?
0.918.
0.918 times, what am I doing, Avery, with my exponents when we divide? Subtracting. So I'm going to have 2 minus a negative 3. So I have 0.918 times 10. But when I have minus a negative, that's really the same as 2 plus 3, right? Minus a negative changes to add. The opposite of negative 3 is positive 3. Well, let her in and we'll just unlock the door. Sorry about that. So, our answer at this point is 9.1 or 0.918 times 10 to the 5th. I need to write it in scientific notation. This is telling us to move it 5 places. Thank you. We now want to look at our final answer in scientific notation, 9.18 Haley times 10 to the what place? Before I was moving it 5, now I'm going to place it here. 4 or 6? 4. Okay. So, on the worksheet that you're going to be doing, the answers are in the back. Okay. One of the first things that you are asked to do on C10, okay, is to again rank these. Okay. When you think of ranking, and notice that they're only in scientific notation. They're huge numbers, right? What are we talking about? We're talking about the mass of these astronomical bodies, right? They're huge numbers. If I'm looking for the smallest one, okay, 1 is our smallest, what exponent should it have? What should the exponent be in comparison to the other ones? It's the smallest exponent, right? The largest one. So when I'm looking, like I have 30th, right? The sun's my biggest one, right? My smallest one is between Pluto and the moon, right? Which one's actually smaller? Pluto, right? 1 compared to 7, okay? So you're going to rank those, okay? The next thing you're going to do, you are not going to do, so on this worksheet, if you turn to this page, you need to do number 1 tonight. Then you are not going to do 2, 3, 4, 5, because those all deal with addition of scientific notation, okay? Then you are going to skip. And you are going to do number 7, number 8, number 9, and number 10. The reason we are doing those is those are all of our problems that deal with multiplication and division. That is what I need completed when you walk in the door tomorrow. Some of you are going to finish that up and in the time left in class. I'm going to hand out this worksheet, right? If you are looking, and only if you have number 1 and then those other 3 questions then, do you want to start on this? Because tomorrow in class, I'm going to be giving you time to work on this and the back of this, and I'm going to explain that in class before the other people take their quiz, okay? So when you look at this worksheet, okay, that's what we are going to be looking at tomorrow in class. But some of you today